Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Cbrev. Welcome to the very first comprehensive positional tier list for MLB The Show 23. Today is March 28th of 2023. It is standard release launch day. If you guys are new to my stuff, my name is Cbrev. You can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Cbrev. My Twitter is at CbrevMLB. And if you're seeing this somewhere other than YouTube, my YouTube is Cbrev. So what we're going to be doing in this video, we're going to be posting them all throughout the year, and we're going to be ranking every single diamond card in the game, at least the top 50 of them, and ranking them in tiers. So really, I'm trying to give you all a guideline of who I think are the best cards in the game at the moment. It's really just that, a roadmap, a guideline. It's not designed to tell you which cards you can be using or should be using. Hitting and pitching in this game is pretty subjective, and these are just my opinions, so it's really just to help you guys decide if you're on the fence between one card or another, or if you're just looking for someone new to try. A couple things to note about the content where we're at right now. This is obviously the first year that we're having 99s at launch. Some of them are easily obtainable, some of them are not. Same goes with slightly lower cards like the TA 97s. So it makes things a little weird. So depending on where you're at in the grind, it may change. You know, you may opt to go for a lower tier, lower rated card just because it's easier to get, depending on where you're at. And obviously, you know, the 99 at launch thing is pretty awesome. There's already in-game cards in the game. As far as the meta where we're at and what we're looking for in terms of cards, basically all of the best pitching in the entire game right now is right-handed, and so that means we're going to be weighing hitting stats versus right-handed pitching very, very highly, much more highly than any hitting stats versus left-handed pitching, and we're going to end up with some left-handed hitting heavy lineups too at the end. That's just kind of how it's going. If that makes you uncomfortable, feel free to add more righties to your lineup, drop down a tier and pick a righty instead or something, but when you get online, all the best pitchers, at least that are available at the moment, are right-handed. So that's just one of the main things I thought was important to mention at the beginning. One more thing too, we are not going to be accounting for captain boosts in this video, except for one exception because it has to be mentioned with the cards, which is the Buck O'Neil boost. So I did put all of the NLB players boosted on the tiers, but that is the only one because they really need to be mentioned together with that boost. Anyway, we're on catcher, and right away we've got Martin Dihigo boosted as the #1 catcher. If you don't want to run him at catcher, another good spot for him is like middle infield as well. And if you just don't want to run with that Buck O'Neil captain, then the next best catcher is actually Kensuke Kondo, which is a card you can get just from the WBC program. He's maybe one of the best easily grindable cards in the game. Left-handed catcher, very similar to the 96 Mauer we got at launch last year, but much, much easier to get. So besides a boosted Dihigo, I think he's #1. Card plays really well. 97 Craig Biggio is third, which might look a little weird, but they did give quirks, active quirks to legend cards this year, and Biggio is loaded with them. He's got both dead red and breaking ball hitter as well, so I'm thinking that might have him playing up on his low power a little bit. Remains to be seen, but pretty solid card overall. Then we've got Bench as well, who also got a ton of quirks, and then Napoli, who also has great hitting stats and quirks, but his defense is just so bad I couldn't rate him higher than 5th at catcher. And then rounding out S tier, we've got Salvi and Gonquan Galigalao. A tier, Piazza Ford, Mauer, Rutschman, Real Muto Posada, and non-boosted Dihigo. Piazza and Ford very, very good, and Mauer very good in the meta that we're in right now too. So if you're looking to drop down, those are some options, and then kind of starts to fall off a bit at B tier here for the catcher position. For most people, I think it makes sense to just go for Kensuke Kondo, but if you are, you know, looking for somebody else, you could go with Dihigo, and then also Napoli if you don't care about defense at catcher. On to first base, and we start to see these 99 in-game cards. 99 Babe Ruth, the set collection, one of the rewards. Just absolutely stacked. This position in general is so stacked. Ruth, max hitting stats across the board with all the quirks you could ever want. Card is disgusting. But after that, we've got 99 Munetaka Murakami. I am so happy we got all these WBC cards. It's so cool to play with somebody from Japan, just like in MLB The Show. It's amazing. And Murakami is absolutely stacked. Max power and pretty much 110 contact. Also left-handed and has gold defense at third base, which we'll talk about when we get there. But card is very, very, very good. And the best first baseman in the game, in my opinion, besides Babe Ruth. Then we got McGuire third, who honestly could maybe be a little bit lower. It just kind of felt bad to put him that low because we're at launch and he's the AL collection reward. But he's potentially lower than Gehrig, Devers, and Peterson. It's pretty close between all those guys. Gehrig loaded with quirks as well, and then we've got Devers and Jock, two Team Affinity cards that are just insanely good. Love both of those. And then we got Mutual, Freeman, Cabrera, Alonso rounding out S+ tier. And you'll notice some of these positions have S+ and S. It just, if it's a loaded position, that's how I broke it up. If it's a more shallow position, it's more standard. But continuing on with first base, we got Cano. You can see boosted at Buck O'Neil there in the middle of S tier. And then Napoli, also pretty high on the first base list. You can hide that really bad defense a lot better at first than you can at catcher. So another card that you can get in like 30 minutes that's just really good for your team. A couple of guys I like in A tier. Arenado's been playing really well for me. And then obviously, you know, Yu Chang. I've heard good things about Yu Chang, but he's just been okay for me. And then here's the rest of first base. Again, we're only rating the top 50, so at a really deep position like this, it's possible you just don't see somebody listed because they didn't make my top 50. On a second base, another number 1 card that is a set collection reward in Trey Turner. Pretty much an in-game Trey Turner we've got in the set collect there. Card is so nasty. But after that, we've got a reasonably obtainable option in Francisco Lindor. 99 Lindor from the WBC right out the gate, part of the XP reward path. Pretty easy to get to, you know, over the course of a week or two as you're grinding, so definitely an option you could take out of that pack. I have him as the best second baseman that's not from set collections. After that, we got Jazz and then Gunnar, who is also really good in this meta. He really doesn't hit lefties that well, but with the pitching that's out there right now, it's typically okay. So Gunnar, really, really good option there. Mookie Betts, event reward, 97 overall, can play second base. And then we're looking at Pena, Dahigo, Cano, Marte, and McNeil. Some of you guys are probably screaming that Marte is so low. Again, it's because of the attributes versus right-handed pitching. Also, Marte doesn't have hardly any quirks, which is surprising. Top of A tier, we've got Moncada. Just barely missed S tier, again, because of the lack of quirks. You can see Hank Thompson boosted in the middle there. I've really enjoyed Edward Julian as well. Very, very solid options. And then once you get to B+ tier, and specifically the bottom of B+ tier, it really starts to fall off a lot. So I would try to pick someone in S or A if you can. And then here is the rest of the second baseman list. On to third base. Yet another set collection. At the top, we've got Chipper Jones, who probably won't be obtained or seen play for most people for weeks. But after that, we've got Eddie Matthews. Between Matthews and Murakami, it's really, really close. I do have Matthews ahead of him, just because Matthews is loaded with quirks and Murakami doesn't have any quirks. So the trade-off is you're getting more contact versus left if you use Murakami, and you're getting more quirks if you use Matthews. So given the state of pitching, Matthews makes more sense. But personally, I'll probably be running Murakami at first and Matthews at third. That sounds like a lot of fun. We've got McGuire at fourth there, and then Trey Turner. You can see Devers popping up again, Jazz, Gunnar, Lindor, Freeman. A lot of these guys repeating themselves throughout these infield positions, and if you notice Freddie Freeman at the top or near the top of a lot of these positions that he plays first and third. Another card that's great versus righties and has good quirks, so that would be why. S tier, we've got 99 Miggy. You can see Jeff McNeil up there, and then you've got Kondo, who can play third base if you're not using him at catcher. And then once again, A tier, pretty good still, but not as good as S+ and S. I will say Pena at third feels a little bad because you're not using the speed as much, but that's why we put him at short. Here's the rest of third base. Brandon Crawford could probably be a front page card. That was pretty close for third base. That card rakes. All right, shortstop, we've got Chipper ahead of Jeter just because the power and the switch hitting from Chipper is just worth it over the fielding and speed from Jeter for me at shortstop, but that's a decision most of you will not have to make for a very long time. Then we've got Jeter, happy he's in the game, number 2 there, and then Trey and Lindor again. So middle infield, top 2, shortstop, second base is Trey and Lindor for me, with Jazz a close second, and then Gunnar right behind. Pena, the best TA shortstop, in my opinion. You can see boosted Dihigo there, and then Ketel Marte rounding out S tier. A lot of similar names at shortstop that we saw at second base. Notably, Wander Franco moving up here just because shortstop is a bit more shallow, and also the speed and fielding kind of bodes a little bit better at shortstop than second base. And then again, towards the bottom of B plus tier, starts to fall off a bit. Eugenio Suarez at shortstop is hilarious because he's going to be so bad defensively, but if you really want to bat there, you can go for it. Also, shortstop only had 48 diamond cards in the game, so that's why S and A only have 9 people instead of 10. And here is the rest of them. Again, Crawford, pretty rough at shortstop because of his speed, but rakes. Alright, and now on to outfield. I can't believe we're on outfield already. This has got to be the fastest I've ever gone through a tier list. Wait till we get to the lineups. It's going to slow down. But outfield, we've got 99 Sammy Sosa, the purest 5-tool outfielder we have in the game. Card is disgustingly good. So happy he is in the game. And then I actually have Ruth as the second best outfielder, only behind Sosa because of the fielding, obviously. Again, that's a card most people won't see for a long time, so we can just move on from there. After that, we've got WBC Trout and Shohei Ohtani WBC card in his secondary position. So let's talk about Ohtani. He can actually start in the outfield. He can also simultaneously start as a starting pitcher and DH. You can't have him starting pitcher and outfield, obviously. And if you pitch with him and you want him to recover energy, he has to still be in your rotation. So if you're going to play Shohei in the outfield, he is a top 4 option for me right now, but it means you can't pitch with him, essentially. But if you wanted to use Shohei's bat and pitch with him, then you just put Shohei at DH. So that's the deal with that one there. Jim Edmonds just came out today in the second Diamond Duos pack. Card is really gross, and also very good in the meta that we're in. Like I said, all the right-handed pitching, he crushes it. And then we got Turner, Jazz, Greg Vaughn, new legend, love to see it, Ricky Henderson, and live series marked Mike Trout, rounding out S plus tier there. S tier starts to fall off a bit. There's just a ton of loaded options in S plus tier, like literally some of the best cards in the game. So if you're navigating through S tier in the middle here for your outfield, you're really not doing bad at all. Don't get discouraged if you don't have any of the guys in S plus, because you know this is all 97s and 99s in S tier too. Younghoo Lee, I think is how you pronounce that. Card is insanely good. You know, 115 contact both sides, about 85 power both sides, and gold fielding, mid-80s speed. Really slept on card, I feel. As is Granderson, who's just playing, you know, with the mashing of right-handed pitching, is just doing really well in the meta right now. And then as we move down, you can see Ketel, Kinsuke pops up again. Juan Soto, despite the subpar fielding, still making it into S tier just because the bat is so good. And as we're on the outfield slide, I should mention too, I'm valuing defense a whole lot more this year than I have in years past, especially in the corners. I feel like it's a lot riskier to put a bad fielding outfielder in the corner outfield this year. They revamped the outfield jumps basically, and it's based on your outfielder's fielding. So I've been seeing a ton of poor defensive outfielders getting awful jumps out there. So that's why someone like Juan Soto probably would have been S plus tier in MLB The Show 22, but is just down in S tier now because what you're giving up on defense is a lot more punishing in the corner outfield this year from what I've seen. Anyway, at the top of A plus tier, we've got boosted Buck O'Neil in a secondary position. Now that we're 15 minutes into the video, I should probably mention that the blue players are just guys in their secondary positions. Sorry about that. Randy would be better if there was more left-handed pitching in the game, but still really good. And then you can see McGuire at the bottom. Santander, also a card I love, but not great defensively and lower contact versus right. Outfield's absolutely stacked. You can see as we go all the way down to C tier, we have Giancarlo Stanton and Jorge Soler. I wanted them on the list because of their bats, but Stanton specifically is almost unusable in the outfield with his speed, so that's why they're all the way down. But even somebody like Blackman in A- tier, or somebody like Ian Happ in B tier, these are all serviceable cards. So it just goes to show how deep the position is. But obviously the guys in S+ tier are the ones that you're really going to be shooting for as you move on and move through with your grind. All right, on to starting pitching, and here's where you can really see why I'm valuing hitting stats versus righties so much. The highest starting pitcher that I have rated that throws left-handed is Boosted John Donaldson, and he's 14th. And besides him, the next highest is Fernando Valenzuela, who is 18th. So without Captain Boost accounted for, the top 17, or I guess 16 pitchers in the game are right-handed. So that just goes to show it's even worse when we get to the bullpen. You just wait till we go over the left-handed reliever slide. But if you're thinking I'm going a little overboard with the left-handed or with the hitting stats against right-handed pitching, it's because the right-handed pitching has gone a little overboard. 99 Roki is the number one pitcher for me, and I think he's going to be pretty close to number one for much of set one. His pitch mix is just really gross, and his attributes across the board are really strong. He's got double outlier on his four seam and his sinker, also has a cutter and a forkball. Just disgusting card. Going to be hard to hit all year. After that, we've got Shohei Ohtani. They actually revamped his pitching motion a little bit, and I feel like he's actually a bit harder to hit this year. Even though the motion is simpler, for some reason he was a bit easy to read with his previous motion, so I'm hoping this helps his usability a bit. Regardless, as a pitcher, where we're at with the other options in the game, he is one of the best that you can use. After that is Pedro, another set collection reward that you probably won't see for a while. Then we've got Bob Gibson in the XP reward path. Really good card. Always love Bob Gibson cards. He's also got max pitching clutch, I believe, with 108 hits per 9, so that is a good sign that you can be giving your opponents a small PCI throughout the entire game, no matter the situation. And then really the starting pitchers is why I decided to include the Buck O'Neil boost, is because 3 of the top 10 starters in the game, in my opinion, are the boosted versions of the MLB guys. So we've got Satchel Paige in 5th here, and then you can see Rube Foster in 8th and Hilton Smith in 9th. The Buck O'Neil captain boost is really going to be a game changer for those of you who are just starting out on your grind. If you're no money spent, those cards are going to carry you for a long time. A lot of these 99 pitchers, somebody like Ohtani is really expensive right now. Somebody like Roki, really expensive, but you can just go do your storylines and come out the other side with 4 of the top 14 pitchers according to this list, and you haven't spent any stubs on them. So that's why the captain boost is being mentioned. Besides Page, we've got Feller and Darvish there, and then Dustin May from Team Affinity rounding out S tier. A tier, we got Cueto, and then the new 99 Fergie Jenkins. Fergie maybe could be a little bit higher, but the 88 hits per 9 scares me. He's got insane pitching clutch though, so he's almost a weird card in that he's going to pitch better if you're in trouble. I don't know if cards attributed that way are going to be good or not, since clutch is a new thing, but the reason Fergie's low is because of his hits per 9 is low. You guys can see the rest of them there. Martin Dihigo at the bottom of the A tier. I don't imagine I'll be pitching with Dihigo much, just because it makes more sense to use him as a position player and fulfill the Buck O'Neil captain boost in that way. And then in B+ tier, really starts to fall off, honestly. I would say the drop from A tier, or maybe even like the middle of A tier and lower, is just like a pretty significant drop off in card quality. So obviously we're gonna be wanting to go for those guys in S tier, but it's a lot. You got Sasaki and Ohtani, who cost a lot. You got Gibson, who takes a lot of time. Yeah, pitching is tough right now. It's probably gonna be the hardest thing for you to fill out, besides if you just run with the storylines, guys. Here is the rest of starting pitcher. I forgot to mention too, for outfield and starting pitcher only, I did 60 players instead of 50, just because there's so many of them. But here are some more options if you are interested in that, or if you need a pick-me-up from you're just starting out or whatever. All right, on to relievers with right-handers. We've got 99 Devin Williams first from the XP reward path. I will say Camilo Duvall is really close to him. Don't let the overalls fool you. I almost put Duvall first. Camilo Duvall, another card you can get for free very quickly, and is just a disgusting card. They also redid his pitch motion this year. He doesn't throw 3/4 anymore, which is a bit of a bummer, but at least it actually looks like how he pitches now. Then we've got closer Shohei, which you can also get for free. That's another option for your bullpen if you're not rocking with the 99 starting pitcher Shohei. And then Gagne, Lee Smith, and then we start to fall off a bit there, but honestly, the bottom of S tier is not too bad for relievers. Normally it's kind of difficult to fill out your bullpen early on, but we've got a lot of good options that are pretty easily obtainable, like Loaizaga, Bard, and Presley. Lee Smith is going to be really cheap on the market soon. Hoffman's pretty cheap, so in terms of righties, not too bad. I also included some golds in these relief pitcher slides just because it's a much shallower position, and we went a much lower than golds for lefties. But you can see the rest of the options there in A tier. 82 Devin Williams, budget beast. You know, you can pick your options there. If you're grinding a bit, like if you just do the WBC program, you've already got Duvall and Ohtani, which is a great start. So launch day is a grind. All right, this slide made me laugh. This is the quickest slide I've ever made in any tier list ever. Here's your left-handed situation. This is another reason, besides the starting pitching, why hitting stats versus righties is so important right now, because who are you going to face out of the pen? If somebody has Billy Wagner, you probably have bigger problems because they have Jeter and Sosa most likely, and you're probably getting smashed anyway. At least that's how I feel. After that, the only diamond available is Taylor Rogers, and then you're looking at gold Josh Hader, who's pretty good for a gold, to be fair. But after that, you know, we're looking at silver Brooks Raley. We're looking at bronze Jose Alvarado. We're looking at 70 overall Aaron Loop. It's rough out here. We need some lefty relievers, and most people aren't going to have Billy Wagner, so most people you play against are going to have exactly one lefty diamond in their bullpen. So, yeah. Good luck if you need to make a move to the pen late in the game. Alright, I think that's all the positions. Let's dive into the lineup screen now. So, this is something I've done the last couple years, and it's something I'll adjust as we go through the year. I just arbitrarily picked 15K and 35K as the stub values for this. But I'll probably adjust it as the year goes on, or if you guys want to see that kind of stuff. Oh, I forgot to mention too, I did not do a designated hitter slide. It's for the same reason that I never used to do bench bat slides. It's because it's impossible to rank them, because there's so many options. Like, it's literally just a hitter, so just pick your best hitter that you don't want playing in the field. Obviously some cards are better than others, like you get more value out of them being a DH, like Jock or Juan Soto, people like that. But in general, I just didn't feel like it was worth putting on here just because they're just hitters. But if you want me to do that in the future, let me know in the comments and we can make it happen if you really want to see it. Anyway, these are the lineup slides. So this is my best attempt to give you a guidance on like what a fully constructed roster would look like given these rankings and giving your situation of, you know, how many stubs you have. So best team of every card under 15K, really trying to go for a super budget squad here. You can see the lineup. We've also ordered the lineup in the way that I would order it. And you can see a lot of Team Affinity cards. So if you're concerned about that already, we've got it taken care of in the next slide. But you can see we're rocking with the Buck O'Neil 7/7 captain boost, which allows us to fill out 4 out of 5 rotation spots. And then Dustin May would be the 5th one. But yeah, we've got Cedric leading off playing center, and then Jeremy Pena at shortstop, Rafael Devers at 3rd, Martin Dihigo catching, Jock at 1st, Taylor Ward in right, Juan Soto at DH, Buck O'Neil in left, and then Jeff McNeil at 2nd base. Bench is a little weird this year too, now that the DH is a thing. I'm really looking for bench bats, especially on these budget slides, that are kind of like making up for weaknesses in the lineup in terms of handedness, or if I get into like crunch time in the 9th inning and I really want to make a pinch hit for somebody, I can. So like running somebody like Kinsuke Kondo makes sense because I don't know if I want to hit right on right with Martin Dihigo with the game on the line. It depends on the situation. Similarly, like Hank Thompson, we have to run anyway for the captain boost, but I don't know if I want to hit right on right with Jeremy Pena with the game on the line, so I could go to Hank Thompson instead. Our first and third basemen are both left-handed, so it makes sense that we run somebody like Arenado on the bench in case we want to make a pinch hit there. So those are the things that I'm thinking about with my bench this year. I'm sure there's a million different ways you could use your bench. I'm also sure people will just be tanking their bench for their captain boosts later on in the year as it gets a bit easier to fill out, the more niche ones. Anyway, don't look too much into the bench is the bottom line. Just do whatever you think works. But yeah, and then the bullpen, we have to run 6 righties and 2 lefties again because there's just literally no options in the bullpen. I mean, you could drop down to 78 Brooks Raley if you wanted to, and then you would get rid of Emmanuel Clase. That would give you 5 righties, 3 lefties. But for me, I'd just rather run Clase. So right now we're looking at 6 righties, 2 lefties on the budget squad. Those righties are Duvall, Ohtani, Bard, Presley, Loaizaga, and Clase. And then the lefties are Taylor Rogers and 84 Josh Hader. All right, next slide is the same thing, but no Team Affinity bosses. So I thought this might be useful for those of you grinding because Team Affinity this year is a super long grind. It actually takes forever. It takes a lot of playtime hours to even get to your first boss in each division. So this is more like budget squad and I'm not far in TA and I don't feel like grinding it type of slide. So I thought this might be useful as well, but a lot of the cards in the previous slide were from Team Affinity, so just as a note, you're kind of dropping off quite a bit in terms of card quality here. But still an option and something to shoot for as you're first starting out, I suppose. We've got Randy Arozarena in center field leading off, and then we're starting Hank Thompson at shortstop. Then we got Urshela at third base, Dihigo catching, Edward Julian at first. We're using Kondo in right field. And then Napoli at DH, Buck O'Neil in left field, and Yu Chang at second base. Again, did the same thing with the bench here. Not a lot of options. I will say Luis Urias has pinch hitter quirk, so pretty good bench bat there. And then rotation is the same, obviously, but with Pablo Lopez filling out that 5th spot instead of Dustin May. And the bullpen is exactly the same because there are no relief pitching Team Affinity bosses. Alright, we're cruising. We're almost done. Couple more minutes. This is the best team, every card under 35k, so upping the ante a bit. I will say personally, the quality of team that you get moving from 15k to 35k is not that impactful. I wouldn't say this squad is significantly better than the 15k squad. It's just a frame of reference. It's part of a product of so many TA cards being relevant, I suppose. But we do have a Granderson playing center field leading off. He's got table setter quirk, which is why we have him leading off. You can move him down a bit if you don't care about that. It really only matters in the first at bat of the game, I suppose, because after that you can't predict when you'll be up with nobody on. Anyway, we've got Devers hitting second, and then Jeremy Pena third, Jock DHing, Robbie Cano at second base. That's a position that actually does get upgraded pretty significantly in the 35k slide, so maybe that's someone you want to shoot for. Dihigo catching again, Young-Hoo Lee in right field, and then Freddie Freeman at first and Buck O'Neil in left field. The bench, because we did get rid of John Donaldson in the rotation, we have to put Jackie on the bench because we need 7 of these players for the captain boost, so that's why he's in there. Hank Thompson, of course, there as well. And then Moncada and Edman. I really like Edman as a bench bat because he's a switch hitter, hits lefties better. So if we do need to, kind of compensate for the fact that we have a lot of lefties in the lineup, he can come in, play a lot of positions, and have a pinch hit for us against a lefty. Rotation is Paige Foster Smith, and then Dustin May and Johnny Cueto taking the 5th spot now, the under 35k slide. And then the bullpen is roughly the same, but much improved actually. That didn't make sense saying those things back to back. This bullpen is much improved. We've got Duvall and Ohtani, but then we're adding Lee Smith and Trevor Hoffman, and then Daniel Bard and Ryan Presley. Again, we're running 6-2. You could drop Ryan Presley for Brooks Raley if you really wanted a third lefty in the bullpen. This slide is under 35K with no team affinity bosses. So this lineup is actually pretty good. Similar in terms of the cards that we're using. Specifically, you can see Granderson, Cano, Lee, Urshela, Freeman all staying. But the most significant change here is that we're running Kondo at catcher, and we've moved Martin Dihigo to shortstop. And as a result of that, we added Mike Piazza to the bench. Piazza, a right-handed hitting catcher with the pinch hitter quirk. So if you're starting Kinsuke Kondo in any situation, I think it makes a lot of sense to have Piazza on your bench in that regard. Anyway, the lineup looks like Granderson leading off, playing center, and then Kondo at catcher, then Dihigo at shortstop, Cano at second, Lee at right, Moncada DHing, Urshela at third, Freeman at first, and Buck O'Neil in left. The rest of the bench is Arias, and Randy Arozarena also makes a ton of sense as a bench bat for us here because we do have two left-handed outfielders. And then Hank Thompson on the bench again for the boost. Again, our rotation is 4 of those guys, and then Johnny Cueto. And then the bullpen is the same as the last 35K and under slide. Alright, 32 minutes. Sorry this has been so long. We're rounding it out here. Last slide is best team possible, any card in the game. Except I did exclude set collections because it's going to take a long time to get them. Like, I saw one guy that got Chipper already on Twitter, but otherwise it's kind of out of reach until I make the next video. So even though this is like the biggest God Squad you could have, I still excluded those guys just because, it's pretty out of reach for almost everyone. Anyway, we've got Ohtani DHing leading off, also has table setter quirk, and he's also in our rotation pitching, so that's why he's at DH. Then we have Jeter at shortstop, Murakami at first base, Sammy Sosa in right field, Eddie Matthews at third, Mike Trout in center, Jim Edmonds in left, Francisco Lindor at second, and Kinsuke Kondo at catcher. Because this God Squad lineup doesn't actually run the Buck O'Neil boost, that moves Martin Dihigo down, and so therefore the best catcher in the game at that point is Kinsuke Kondo, which is still kind of crazy to think about. Again, we're running Piazza on the bench for the same reasons I mentioned earlier, and then you're probably not pinch hitting for many people in this God Squad lineup, but just in case, we've got McGuire on the bench who has pinch hitter, Jock Peterson has pinch hitter, so pick who you want, I guess. The rotation is Roki, Shohei, Bob Gibson, Bob Feller, and Yu Darvish. Again, no Pedro because we excluded set collections. And then the bullpen adds Devin Williams and Eric Gagne. We're also still running Duvall, Lee Smith, and Hoffman. And now because we have access to 96 Billy Wagner, we can run 3 lefties safely. So we're running Billy Wagner, Taylor Rogers, and Josh Hader. So that was a long video. It's a banger of a launch. There's a ton of cards in the game. I hope this was helpful for you all. This took a very long time to make, a lot of hours. So if you enjoyed yourself, I would very much appreciate a subscription to the channel so you can watch more of the stuff that I'm putting out. But otherwise, appreciate you all watching. Take care, have fun at launch building your squad up, and we'll see you next time.